Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My entitled roommate is pregnant and I don't want to live with her anymore. After that, am I the jerk for refusing to sign anything for my husband while my eyes are blindfolded? And after that, I was forced to eat at a fancy restaurant for a month. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen doesn't get to eat at a fancy restaurant. As long as we can go to IHOP, I'll be fine. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My entitled roommate is pregnant and I don't want to live with her anymore. Me, female 22, and my best friend/roommate, female 23, just got a new place together in the beginning of December of 2021 and everything was going great. That was soon short-lived when she told me that she might be pregnant. After taking 3 tests, it was confirmed that she was pregnant. I asked her if she thought she was ready for a baby, and she said she had no choice since she does not believe in getting rid of it. She was very excited, and naturally I was happy but extremely shocked because she's still very young, has not finished school, and her and the baby's father, male 46, are not together as he lives an hour and a half from where me and her stay now. After finding out she was pregnant, she quit her job, claiming that she's going to find a new one because she's too sick. 2 months later, and she still does not have a job and can barely pay her half of the rent. Her family pays the rent, car note, insurance, and just about anything else you can think of, even though they don't have it. Her father recently passed, so her mom pays my best friend's bills and the bills her father left behind when he passed. Her mom always tells her that she needs to get a job because she's always giving her last money to her daughter. But she is unfazed by these conversations as if she has nothing to worry about. I asked her what her plan was, and she says she plans to stay in this apartment with me and the baby while working and doing school at the same time. Her family lives far, and so I asked her what she planned to do for childcare, and she said she refuses to let anyone watch her kid and she won't do daycare until he or she is able to talk. After really contemplating on whether I wanted to live with a baby or not, I decided that it might not be the best thing for me. One day she was on the phone with her mother telling her that she wanted her kid to be in a private school. Her mom said that she was going to have to pay for it herself because her mother was not going to pay it. My friend's response was that her mom didn't have to worry about it because myself and her will be taking care of the tuition for the baby. I was very taken aback by this because I did not agree to this or anything to do with the baby. I feel like if I stay, I'm going to put myself in a terrible situation. I'm still a student at university and I am in my pre-medicine program. This is very important to me as I want to become a doctor in the future. However, I feel like the baby is going to disrupt a lot of my studying or resting time because that's what babies do. She's due to have the baby in September, however, the lease does not end until January of 2023, so I will have to live with her and the baby until then. I haven't told her my plans yet because I know she will take this very personally and we still have 11 months until the lease ends. But am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Run far and fast. She will dump everything she can on you. Talk to your landlord about your options. Talk to your landlord ASAP and also look through your lease agreement if you're allowed to sublet or break it. Your grades will suffer when your roommate tries to push responsibility of the baby onto you. Don't tell her anything until you have another place ready for you to move into. Otherwise, for revenge, she might destroy your things. Tell lies to the university to get you into trouble. Tell your friends and classmates lies to make them hate you or pressure you to help her, etc. Not the jerk. Leave before the baby is born, like ASAP. She will guilt you when she gets big and daily tasks are harder. She will guilt you during her recovery after birth. She will guilt you with the reality of motherhood and she gets stressed out. You will say, I can't leave a pregnant friend. You will say, I can't leave a friend that just gave birth. You will say, I can't leave a friend that is struggling with a newborn. Talk to your landlord. Not the jerk. Does your friend follow a lot of influencers who talk about manifesting their ideal lives or something? Because your friend seems to be living in a delusional world where all the money and support she needs to survive will just magically appear. In reality, she's just using people. She's using her mom currently, and she has plans to use you. You cannot allow that to happen. It's just unfortunate that you're stuck on the lease for almost another year. Do you have family close enough that you could stay with them, or at least on weekends, before the baby arrives, and until your lease is up and you can move out? It's not ideal by any means, but the easiest way to avoid being roped into unpaid childcare by your friend is to simply never be there. OP. She is definitely the quick money scheme type of girl, always trying things that never work out. Unfortunately, I don't have any family to go live with. I just got out of foster care recently and didn't have a place to go. I found a temporary place, and after trying options for a more permanent place, she was my only option. So instead of becoming homeless, I opted for her as my roommate under the condition that her mother be on the lease as collateral for myself, because I know me and her mother were more financially responsible. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. I wouldn't want to live with her either. Maybe she can go live with that dude who's twice her age who knocked her up. Am I the jerk for refusing to sign anything for my husband while my eyes are blindfolded? Ever since I got out of the hospital for chronic problems, my husband has been introducing me to some games every evening. One game used to be about doing things while my eyes are blindfolded, involving puzzles, Rubik's Cubes, shaped objects, etc. We'd take turns to do it just for entertainment. Just a couple of days ago, he's been trying to get me to sign papers while wearing a blindfold. I refuse to do it because he never lets me take a look at what I'm signing, neither before or after. He says that he was just trying to see if I could leave the same signature every time I sign, but I couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. I told him I don't want to play this game unless and until he shows me the papers first. He said, "Never mind then," and stopped bringing it up. Last night, he tried to convince me to give it a try and even volunteered to go first. I asked if he was going to show me what I was going to sign, and he made a face and said no. It's the rules and I should respect them. I refused, and he kept on about how I keep acting worried and suspicious for no reason. He said I clearly don't trust him, and he was hurt by finding that out now after everything we've been through. We had an argument, and I told him to drop it and not bring it up again, period. He was mad, despite saying it was no big deal. He was obviously upset with me and kept talking about how I don't trust him and that I was out of line to assume or suspect anything from him like this. I might be paranoid, but I couldn't help it. I do think I was the jerk after he stood by my side when my own family didn't even visit. Not the jerk. This is extremely suspicious. Obviously, he wants you to sign something important. Financial documents, loan, will property, divorce papers. List could be endless. Do not sign anything blindfolded. I would add, do not sign on any blank papers from now on. OP. This is what I suspected, but I couldn't tell him because he might think I don't trust him. He already does, but I didn't want to make it obvious. It's not his fault because I easily distrust everyone due to my past. It all just depends on the situation I'm in. This is perfectly normal thing to not trust. Either he is gaslighting you about it, or he is somehow completely ignorant of how this is coming across. Unlikely. The fact that he pushed the issue is so suspicious. At the very least, it's a red flag for personality. Much more concerned that he's hiding something big. The fact he brought it up again, I could, possibly, see the first time thinking it's a fun challenge, but then be like, oh, that does seem weird. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Homeboy's definitely up to something. This sounds exactly like something I would do to Reddit boy. I was forced to eat at fancy restaurants for a month. Many years ago, I got put on a work assignment for months that required me to travel to New York City and stay every Monday through Friday. I was assisting a company manager with a project, and my hotel was near his regular office in the theater district. If you are not familiar, the theater district is heavily built for tourists. Restaurants are generally kind of fancy and expensive. There were really not any quick and cheap options for dining in that area. The company had a generous meal policy of up to $30 to $40 a meal for travel expenses. I did use that for a bit, but the food got to feeling too indulgent and kind of ridiculous given it was an extended assignment. Also, I was working really long hours and did not want to go sit in restaurants. I just wanted to go watch TV and sleep in my room. So after the first week or so, instead I went to a grocery store on Monday night. I bought some basics for cereal, sandwiches, and snacks, and some frozen meals I could microwave for lunch in the office. It cost about $60. I then took a few cans of soda from my hotel fridge to make room for my weekly food purchase and returned them before checking out at the end of the week. And that was it for food costs, with an occasional meal out here or there. I did the same the next 4 weeks, submitted my expense report at the end of the month. You know where this is going. A lady from accounting called and refused to reimburse my expenses because $60 is more than $40. the max allowance for a meal purchase. I explained that it covered 5 days of food, but was told it didn't matter. I then spent the next month trying all the food in the neighborhood. There really were not any cheap options. I went out to eat a few mornings, lunch whenever I found time, and dinner absolutely every day. I could have bought a few installments of groceries, but the once-a-week shopping convenience was part of why I'd wanted them. It had also seemed wasteful to me to go out for an expensive meal every night for long-term travel, but now I'd been told that was preferred by accounting to my grocery bills. The next month, I got a call from my New York City manager asking how I had run through more budget every week of the month than the entire month before combined. I explained the grocery situation, and he thanked me and hung up. About 10 minutes later, that same lady from accounting called me to tell me that they'd pay my still not reimbursed grocery bill, and any going forward as long as the daily amount averaged for the week was under the aggregate meal allowance. I happily returned to a more reasonable diet. Am I the jerk for not putting my husband's children in my will? My husband Jack and I married later in life. We were both in our 50s. It was a second marriage for both of us. He has 3 kids. I don't have any biological kids, but I'm still very close to my former stepson, Thomas, that I helped raise. We were both very well off financially, Jack more than me. Jack owned his business and was upfront that he intended that business to be left to his kids. We signed a prenup before our wedding that basically said we each get to keep what we brought into the marriage. We kept our finances separate, though we both contributed to a joint account for household expenses, which we split 50-50. We did our wills at this time. Jack left everything to his kids, and I left mine to Thomas. We were both aware of what the other had done, and we were fine with it. Jack's business went under about 4 years ago. He was desperate to keep the business going and poured all his savings into it. The business had been his grandfather's and then his father's, and he was determined to be able to hand it down to his kids. He ended up losing almost everything. He was completely devastated. Standard of living-wise, not much changed, except that I'm paying 100% of the household expenses. I love him, and I'm fine with this. I had a health scare about a month ago where I realized that if Jack passed, Jack would be left with nothing, as my will gives everything I own to Thomas. I told Jack that I was planning to change my will. My plan was to put a third of my assets into a trust for Thomas's kids. He has 2 currently that both call me Nana. A third directly to Thomas, and a third in a trust for Jack. I would set it up so that Jack would receive a generous monthly check, but that after he passed, the assets in the trust would go to Thomas. I did it that way because I want Jack taken care of while he is alive, but after that, I want it to go to Thomas, not Jack's kids. Jack is furious that his kids aren't going to receive anything. He kept pointing out that I have 3 stepkids, not just one former one. Why are his kids getting nothing and Thomas everything? I should say that by the time we got together, Jack's kids were grown. One already had a kid and another was married. Other than the occasional holiday, I've never lived with Jack's kids. While he is not mine biologically, Thomas is my son in every way that counts. While I get along with Jack's kids, we are not close at all. Jack is threatening to leave me over this. He keeps saying that if I don't care about his kids, that means I don't care about him. I've told him that's nonsense and that I don't respond well to ultimatums. We had planned to leave our assets separately before we were ever married, but now that he doesn't have money, suddenly he wants me to leave my money to his kids. Am I the jerk for not wanting to? Not the jerk. You kept your finances separate. He knew of the deal. Now he's changing it because his financial situation changed. He was the one making more in the first place, so he did not care about your money. But because now he has less, he cares about your money. Would he have added your stepson to his will and divided his assets 4 ways if you had lost a lot of money? I seriously doubt it given his behavior. OP. I do not believe he would have, and I would have understood that. Thomas is my son, in the heart, former stepson legally, not Jack's. Please don't choose a man you've known for a lesser amount of time over your stepson. This man is showing his true colors by threatening to leave you. You both made a deal, and he's the one that's trying to push your boundary. I don't get it. After Jack's little fit about your proposed will change, I just let him know you'll be leaving it as it's been all along. And if your marriage doesn't mean more to him than money his kids can get out of it, he should take care not to have the door hit him on the backside on his way out. It's hilarious that he's threatening to divorce you over this. The guy's being 100% supported by OP, and the change to her will was meant to include him instead of just leaving everything directly to her son Thomas in case of her passing. The jerk thinks demanding his kids be included under the threat of a divorce, that will mean he's no longer supported by OP, nor included in her will, somehow makes sense. Dude has zero leverage for his idiotic demands and doesn't even realize it. It is indeed hilarious. OP is still alive, so the prenup will kick in, so her will be irrelevant. He will get absolutely nothing. OP, let him leave you. He only wants equity now that it suits him. Do not give in. This man is being completely unfair. Now, it might be because of the stress of losing everything. If you want to fight for it and give him the opportunity to sort himself out through counseling, that's on you. But that ultimatum is unacceptable to me. OP. I don't find my husband talking about a divorce hilarious at all. I find it gut-wrenching. Don't misunderstand. I have no intention of giving in to his ultimatum, but Jack is the man I had expected to spend the rest of my life with. This isn't a funny situation at all. I can only imagine how heartbreaking this is for you, especially at this point in your life. I'm truly sorry you're going through this. I do, however, hope this has opened your eyes to the kind of person you married. He didn't care to leave you anything when he had it, but now that he's broke, he wants everything you own? That's extremely selfish. You were very kind to alter your will, and now he's trying to take advantage of that kindness. If he wants his kids to have something, he can get himself a good job and start saving. At the very least, he needs to start to contribute to your expenses. You shouldn't be supporting him the rest of his life, especially after the way he's treated you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more. I will make you stay the 3 months notice if you don't work hard. Notice period negotiation. Necessary background. I was working in a country that allows 14 sick days per year, and actually with no doctor report if you have up to 3 days sick. On top of that, we have 25 PTO plus bank holidays. This was an office job. I was the only one in my team who didn't have a 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. approach and stayed to get my work done, improve things, and help in case of any issues. My manager was able to manage himself to be the only person in the company to work 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., so he wasn't really aware of who was helping out in the afternoon, but he knew perfectly who was more hardworking and committed. So it was a coincidence that on a very rainy day in a typical sunny location, I was not feeling good, so I texted him I was sick that day. He replied back to me that it was an excuse for a rainy day on a Monday, and I was no professional, and he wanted a doctor's certificate when he had no right to ask for one. Good. I know I have 14 sick days allowed, and this was my first one, so I got a doctor's certificate saying I need to take the full week off. I sent the certificate to my manager and a copy to his manager and take a full week off that I enjoyed in my house doing some sports and watching some movies and series. After I came back, he told me how much he missed me and realized who really gave a hoot on the project. Okay, on to the main story. In that company, I had a 3 months notice period that was ridiculously long for my level. I spoke with my manager that I was going to relocate for personal reasons, and I was leaving the company and I needed to negotiate the notice period to 2 months. I offered to work on weekends, extra hours, or whatever was needed, but I couldn't stay so long due to the other company in a different place of the world. He told me not to worry about that. He could get me a 2-month notice if I work hard until the last day. I was the hardest worker on the team. During the next 15 days, I asked him every day if he got my letter from HR with my last day because I had a lot of stuff to take care of to move very far away. He always said, "Stop asking and work harder, or you will stay for 3 months. Malicious compliance. I have a workstation and a laptop, and I have in total 4 screens. So I opened Facebook on one screen, Twitter on another screen, news in another screen, internet games in the other screen. I worked in a very open place where all the big boss can see our screens. So very rarely I open the news, maybe 5 minutes per day in the smaller screen top. I did this during his lunch break to make sure that when he came back, he would see all of this. He came back to me very angrily saying, "What the heck are you doing?" My reply was, "I've called the other company and they're okay if I relocate 1 month later, so I will enjoy the rest of the 3 months here at my place." "You can't do that," he replied. "Yes, I can. You can only fire me and pay me for the full 3 months notice period." "I promised you to have 2 months notice, and now this?" Promises are just words. Until I get the HR letter saying clearly that my last day is the one we agreed on with the 2 months notice, I will keep my 4 screens like this. So after 15 days, he only took less than 1 hour to get the letter from HR and I came back to work as normal. Also, he tried to mess things up with my pending holiday with a bad report of HR where I was losing 6 full-time paydays. At the moment I was leaving, they did a performance review of my team, and even when I was on notice, I pulled out more work than the other 2 best members in my team. Never confused to be a professional with letting bullies take advantage of you. Am I the jerk for turning my work phone off on vacation? I don't even believe I have to ask this, but I'm a bit worried about how things are going to go on Tuesday. I recently moved to another team with the company I've worked for the last 2.5 years. Before I got promoted, I had this last week booked off to visit my sister and first niece, which was a big deal to me. I'm also in Canada, and this Monday is already a holiday as it's family day. The new team was informed as well, but I could tell my new supervisor was annoyed by it. He even asked if I could reschedule, but I said I couldn't. I already had to wait a month to meet my niece because my sister is being very cautious with visitors, and I wanted to go help her and her husband and bond. My last day of work was Monday, and I'm supposed to be back on Tuesday. Monday, when I got to the airport, I turned off my work phone. This week with my sister and little niece has been incredible, but extremely busy. I barely have had any interest in checking my own phone because of all the catching up and baby time and just relaxing. I had noticed a call from a number I didn't recognize on Wednesday, but I didn't think much of it. Today, we're having a lazy day, and I decided to flip my work phone on to see if I had any emails to start prepping for next week. I had 20 voicemails and hundreds of messages and emails, with over half of them being from my manager demanding why I hadn't zoomed in for meetings and why I wasn't reachable. I checked my phone voicemail, and the unknown number was him saying he hoped there was a darn good excuse for why I was off the grid if I wanted to keep my job. He even started out the voicemail with, "I'm so sorry you're in the hospital, because that's the only reason I should be needing to hunt you down like this." In Slack, I had a few DMs from coworkers I feel I get along with saying I need to reply ASAP because my absence was impacting them with how mad our boss was. This is my first time not being in an entry-level position, and I'm freaking out. Is the standard that vacations are still worked on? Did I mess up by turning off my work phone? Tomorrow is a holiday for the whole office, so I might not be able to fix things until Tuesday. Am I going to be fired? When I was in the other departments, days off meant days off, so I'm just scared I'm missing something and a huge jerk to my boss and my team. Not the jerk. Keep the messages and go to HR. You were on an approved vacation. He has no right to your time when you're off the clock. Yup, those messages are basically harassment. Manager complains about driving route. Saves £5 a month, but costs the company £1,000. I had a job some years ago where I needed to visit a different customer's premises every day. There were many of us doing this job across several teams, and the expectations was that you drove your own car and were paid a mileage rate. There were no company-provided cars. All was fine until I changed from one team to another and to a new manager queried my first mileage claims submitted to them. The location of our office was on the edge of town, and to reach many of our customers, you could either drive on the main road to the next town, which got you there quickly and safely, or you could take some narrow country lanes, which were a nightmare to drive through, so everyone obviously used the main road. But the manager had discovered the country lane route was 3/4 miles shorter, so 1.5 miles on a round trip. That made 60 pence, 82 cents, difference to the mileage claim for each day. A visit to a customer took a whole day. The manager refused to authorize the claims for the main road route and insisted I resubmitted with the lower mileage as that was what the company rules said you could claim. Fine, no problem. The claim for the month was reduced by £5, $7. But then I told them I was no longer going to use my car to drive to customers, any customers anywhere. There was no obligation in the employment contract to do so, and being in the UK as a long-term employee, there was no way they could get rid of me. The issue was that our customers were not that far away at around 15 miles, but they were mainly in remote areas or on edge of town industrial estates where there was no direct public transport. If you did try and use public transport, then a 30-minute journey turned into a 2-hour journey with all of the connections, and a one-day customer visit became a 2-day visit, so having productivity. For the next month's claim, instead of paying about £8 a day in mileage, the company now had to pay for a rental car or a taxi, both of which cost around £50, $70 a day. My travel claims now went from around £160 a month to £1,000, all to save £5. After the first month, as the manager had a team of 10 all doing the same work, they initially spent an inordinate amount of time trying to allocate me customers that were on public transport routes. But then my colleagues in the team, who had also been taken to task by the manager over the same mileage issues, saw what was going on and also started to refuse to use their own cars. Eventually, after some months, senior management had to step in when they saw how their travel budget was being exhausted and decreed that people could claim for the sensible route. Most went back to driving, but some of us remained using taxis and rental cars, as there was still no contractual obligation to use your own car. My brother wanted to propose to his girlfriend at my upcoming wedding. I said no, and all of this happened. I, 27 male, will start this off by saying my wedding is scheduled for April because my fiancée, 25 female, has always dreamed of a spring wedding. And I really like the idea too. I have an older brother though, 30 male. And last Saturday, I was called over to my parents' house to talk about something, but they refused to tell me what it was until I got there. They then sat me down with my brother and told me that my brother wants to use my wedding as the perfect day for him to propose to his girlfriend. I was instantly mad and told them absolutely not, but they ganged up on me. I ended up so enraged to the point that I, one man, somehow backed all three of them into a corner. I told them that if they want to do this, then not only will they all be uninvited, but I'll also cut off the financial support I've been giving monthly since they paid to have my golden child brother go through college by taking out a second mortgage. I landed a decently high-paying job and have been sending $500 to my parents monthly to help ease their mortgage. And I didn't ask for a stake in the ownership of their house either because I really don't want it. It was entirely goodwill, and I can cut it off anytime. I left without speaking anything more to them, but my brother came to my home the next day to yell at me that I ruined his big chance because now our parents are siding with me and say they'll evict him if he tries to propose at my wedding. He said I was financially blackmailing our parents and that he just wanted a good chance to propose because he was afraid his girlfriend might leave him soon. I said that was his problem, not mine. Because my wedding day is not about him, and if he tries to propose at my wedding, I will have him thrown out. That's not a maybe, but a definite, and I doubt his girlfriend would appreciate her proposal followed up with being tossed out by a bouncer. He yelled a few choice words at me, then went crying to our only surviving grandparent, our maternal grandmother, and she called and lost it at me over the phone. No surprise, my brother heavily embellished the version of the story he told her, but she still sided with him after I gave her the real story. She tried to hold her ground, but the verbal backlash I ended up giving her left her crying. That got back to my parents, who were upset with me for taking things so far, but I told them I only went that far because I had to when they were all trying to get me to let my brother use my wedding as his springboard for a proposal. They ended up agreeing with me, but still stated they feel like I'm being harsh. And my brother showed up at my home again to scream at me that I'm the jerk, and I hope I'm happy with myself for not allowing him the opportunity. My fiancée knows what my brother tried to do, and she's very angry about it. She's almost ready to have him uninvited if he pursues this any further. Normally, I have a very mild temper, but when it comes to certain people like my brother, parents, and grandmother, I can easily get short with them because of all the past favoritism. My grandmother especially. She always sided with my brother and believed his lies no matter what he did. She's the biggest reason my parents favored my brother too. She kept trying to convince me over the phone to let my brother propose at my wedding that I ended up losing it on her. I ended up speaking with my brother again and threatened to tell his girlfriend if he was still intending to propose at my wedding without permission. He took it poorly and called me an awful person, so I pointed out that my wedding isn't about him. Our parents were there for this and they backed me up. I think my brother did a double take when they did that. My dad pointed out that he had raised my brother wrong and that was on him. So from now on, my brother was to show them real respect, and they wanted to get an official lease drawn up for him to pay proper rent and utilities. He was only paying them $300 a month without contributing to any utilities or food, and if he doesn't want to pay, he can move out and they'll rent his room to someone else. My brother turned to our mom for help, but she just agreed with dad. He looked like he was having a conniption and then left the house. He came back a couple hours later, but spoke to no one and locked himself in his room. 2 days later, my brother announced he was moving in with grandma because she invited him, and our parents basically told him that if he wants to live with her, then to go ahead. My brother responded to this by saying we all hate him for just wanting to propose to his girlfriend. My parents pointed out that it's not that he wanted to propose, but where he wanted to do it, and he'd get no support for it. He's refusing to talk to our parents now. My grandmother did try to call me again, but it ended up with me telling her that my brother will not be allowed to propose at my wedding, plain and simple, so he can get over it or not come. And the same goes for her. I ended up calling her out on her favoritism towards my brother since we were kids, which she tried to deny at first, but couldn't keep doing so because of how much I'd pointed out. She ended up crying again while I told her that if she keeps trying to insist on this, then she won't be coming to my wedding. She begged me not to rescind her invite, but still said she doesn't understand why I couldn't let my brother have his way before ending the call. My fiance is 100% on my side and is fully ready to remove my brother and grandmother from the wedding. My grandmother hasn't called again, and she's not talking to my parents either. My guess is my brother went crying to her again to tell her mommy and daddy weren't enabling him anymore. So she offered for him to move in with her, but there's literally nothing she can do to sway me, and I think my last conversation with her made her realize that. I didn't wish to tell my brother's girlfriend, but she called me up on Saturday about my Reddit post. She saw it read in an online video and then realized it might be me with the way I described my brother and grandmother. So yeah, now she knows. She ended up tearing my brother a new one, and he still tried to justify himself to her. That's when she told him they were through and cut all contact with him. My brother, of course, blamed me, even though his girlfriend said that she's been ready to leave him for a while now, and if he had tried to propose, no matter where, she would have told him no. So, that's it. My brother showed up at my place one more time to have a fit and said he's boycotting my wedding. He actually thought he had leverage that he and grandma won't go. I said I wouldn't miss them, and that he's in his 30s now and needs to grow up. Our parents have cut the umbilical cord and are no longer supporting him, and they're already repainting his room to rent it to someone else. And they plan on renting out my old bedroom as well, because they need the money after the financial hole he left them in after dropping out of college just to mooch off of them for a while, and then get a degree with an online college later, and then barely paying any rent, while also making them pay for his food and utilities despite having a good paying job. They spent the world on him, and he wasn't the least bit grateful. That made my brother just shut down and leave, and since then, we've not heard a peep out of him. That's everything that's happened from my original post up until now. Yes, I have very good security hired for the wedding, and they'll toss my brother out like bouncers in a heartbeat. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.